Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and begin with our Education and Culture Committee meeting. This is the first one since our recess, so welcome back, everyone. Although we've convened as a council, this is our first convening of the Education and Culture Committee. Of course, with our first work sessions that we have, we made a promise back before we went on recess, which was that we were going to come back to Southlake Elementary School and a number of our other CIP initiatives that we knew were incredibly important and try and figure out, could we not fit them in? It was something that I really want to thank our school board and our Montgomery County Public Schools Superintendent, Dr. Jack Smith, and his staff for remaining committed to this project and keeping it as a top priority. I also want to thank the community who's been very engaged and involved in terms of making sure that we did not forget our commitment to Southlake and many of the other schools that unfortunately did not make our CIP list. And I know that my colleagues here on the Education and Culture Committee, both Councilmember Navarro and Councilmember Jawando, remain committed to making sure that we can do everything we can to accelerate as many projects as we know are needed in our community. I would be remiss if I didn't say that certainly the BUILD Act from the state legislature that unfortunately was vetoed because he vetoed the Kerwin bill really is standing in the way of us moving a lot of these projects forward. And I've been critical of the governor when the governor has made missteps and been supportive of the governor when the governor has done things that I think have supported his Marylanders. This is one where certainly it falls squarely in the responsibility category of the governor, who has continued to stand in the way of more school construction dollars coming to jurisdictions throughout the state of Maryland, not just here in Montgomery County, that can benefit from this, especially in a COVID time. Now, of course, he made this decision pre-COVID, so I certainly understand that. Well, actually not. But it's still one in which I certainly understand the budgetary constraints that we have and the state has, but we here in Montgomery County are making very tough decisions when it comes to financially being able to move things forward that we know they're important to our constituents, and we would hope that the state of Maryland and the governor would do the same. So certainly we look to our General Assembly in this upcoming general session to make sure that they overturn the governor's veto, allow those dollars to flow to all 24 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland, which allow us to continue to make sure that we're building better, stronger, more resilient schools that are supportive of all the needs that our children have, that are safer, with better HVAC systems and better modalities throughout. We know that all of that is incredibly important. And so the community's been heard loud and clear. We knew that from the beginning that we were going to come back, and as promised, we did just that. So with that, we'll start off with item 1, which is our Montgomery County Public Schools operating budget and grants funds categorical transfer requests. And so I know that we have Mr. Klausing here, who's the Executive Director of the Office of Finance for Montgomery County Public Schools, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez to go ahead and walk us through this first item on the agenda.
I apologize. I'm unable to start my video. I believe the host has stopped it, so hopefully they can start it. But in the meantime, I will just, here we go. Great, wonderful. So today, good afternoon. Today, the committee will make a recommendation to the council on 2 categorical transfer requests from MCPS. The council takes action on this every year to formally allow MCPS to align actual expenditures by category based on actual spending. So to get started, the first categorical transfer is for $7,927,000 in the operating budget, which shifts the amount from Category 3, instructional salaries, to address deficits in Category 4, textbooks and instructional supplies, and Category 7, student personnel services. You'll see on the table on the top of page 3, it highlights the FY20 year-end balance in both a dollar amount and as a percentage of the FY20 appropriation. Council staff would like to note to the committee that in the board's memo on circle pages 4 to 10, MCPS also notes savings as a percent of budget expenditures by category, and that there is a slight difference in the tables calculations compared to the memos, and that is because MCPS used their Fund 01 category for their FY20 appropriation in their calculations, which does not include grants. So the difference in percent is very small, but I did want to note that for the committee. So in their memo as well, MCPS also notes the factors that impacted each category's year-end balance. And unlike last year, the end of fiscal year 20 was affected by the COVID-19 health pandemic. And for this reason, I have not only outlined the specific factors that led to the deficits in categories 4 and 7, but also how the pandemic has impacted categories that ended in a surplus. So in category 4, textbooks and instructional supplies, there was a deficit due to revised expenditure plans for instructional supplies and materials to meet the requirements for distance learning. In category 7, the deficit was not due to COVID, but it was related to new guidance from the Maryland State Department of Education that shifted the expenditure category for grant-funded positions from the associated with the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Concentration of Poverty grant from category 2, mid-level administration, to category 7, student personnel services. For the surpluses, a majority of them were the result of lapse in turnover savings from employee salaries. However, as I mentioned before, a few were impacted due to the COVID-19 health pandemic, and so I've outlined those specific categories below. In category 9, student transportation, there was decreased operations from March through June, which led to savings in bus fuel and parts. In category 10, the operation of plants and equipment, there was a surplus due to decreased operations and facility usage, resulting in significant utility savings. In category 11, maintenance of plant, again, the decreased operations and facility usage resulted in a decrease in spending for contractual services and maintenance supplies. And finally, category 12, fixed charges, the fewer staff hirings from March through June, as well as deferred healthcare visits, resulted in savings in Social Security contributions and lower insurance claims, respectively. So before moving on to the second categorical transfer request, I wanted to see if there were any questions.
So let me turn to my colleagues. Any questions at this point? And again, you could just raise your hand or nod. I can see you. You don't need to text since it's just the three of us. All right, terrific. We can go ahead and move on to the next one. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez.
Of course. So the second categorical transfer request is for $1,617,000 for the Provision for Future Supported Projects Grants Fund. Now, this fund allows MCPS to access federal and state grant funds throughout the year that meet certain conditions. When the council approves the budget for this grant fund in May, it is only an estimate based on the available information at that time for anticipated federal and state grants. As a result, this transfer request of $1,617,000 aligns the year's actual budget expenditures with the actual requirements of the grant projects. If there are no further questions, Council staff recommends approval of both categorical transfers of $7,927,000 and $1,617,000.
Well, I give a chance for my colleagues to just make sure they don't have any questions. Mr. Klausing, did you have anything else that you wanted to add? You're muted, Mr. Klausing. There we go.
I'm unmuted. I'm sorry. Good afternoon, Chairman Rice and Council members Navarro and Juwando. Dr. Smith would want me to take a moment to indicate thank you in anticipation of your approval for this categorical change for 2020. Given our continuity of learning requirements for 2021, it's more than likely than ever we'll have categorical transfers in 2021 as we adapt over the course of this school year to the distance learning requirements.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mr. Klausing, and certainly one in which I know that both Dr. Smith and Dr. McKnight wish they could be here. They had other engagements as well that were scheduled. But thank you for being here and thank you for saying that. We certainly understand and want to make sure we provide as much flexibility to the school system as possible to allow them to help to secure that we have a very robust education system that supports distance learning and the online model. And so from that perspective, I don't see any comments from my colleagues, and so without objection, we will approve the categorical transfers. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we will go to our second topic, which I gave a little teaser to before, but I certainly wanted to give my colleagues, if they wanted to at this time, to certainly say anything. We are now going to be discussing our Montgomery County Public Schools CIP amendments, Southlake Elementary School major capital project, and HVAC replacement systems. Certainly something that, again, we had very robust conversation around before we passed the capital improvements program budget, and certainly one in which was very challenging for all of us in terms of really trying to come to grips with the fact that we didn't have enough money to support all of these great initiatives in terms of rebuilding schools in our community that we knew needed it. So let me turn to my colleagues, Councilmember Navarro, followed by Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's good to see everybody. I just really wanted to note that notwithstanding all of the challenges that we're facing regarding, of course, the CIP, as well as the concerns around our ability to predict what our revenue picture is going to look, and not just right away, not just right now, but going into the future. I understand that this is a very delicate exercise. Nonetheless, I think that, one of the things that I remember really, really affected me deeply when I was advocating for Lee Middle School in the Kent Mill area of my district was this notion that we have certain schools that, by virtue of their demographic makeup, it just seemed so unacceptable that they would have to be in these types of conditions, because it automatically makes you wonder if the fact that you have a school with such high farms rates, where you might have a large component of Black and brown children and families who may not be the ones that show up at our public hearings all the time, somehow these schools continue to just kind of like fall by the wayside. And so for Southlake, it just really jumps out at me, right? The high farms rate, 85.1, the high ESOL rate, 60.9, the fact that you have that 70.8 of the student population is Hispanic. It just really, I feel that in a county like ours, this is just really unacceptable. And I know that our Latino Civic Project has Mayra Cruz Solis. She's been doing some of the workshops about civic engagement and education there. And there is no doubt that it is a very vibrant community in that school, that's for sure. At the same time, again, it just really stands out for me. And so, as the chair of GO, I'm very mindful in terms of our spending affordability guidelines and everything like that. But this one is a tough one. Again, I feel it has parallels to what happened with Lee Middle School. And I really hope that we can figure something out here. So then these children and these families, when they step into the school, they can feel a sense of, pride, but also, again, I think a sense of message that this is a county that values this community and these children. And just because you're poor, just because you happen to be, Black or brown, that should not, just like the school system says, it should not predict your academic achievement, but conditions of where you are, physical conditions, also have an impact on academic achievement. So anyway, I know we're going to get into more conversations about HVAC and also the school, and I appreciate the board's work on this, and also, Mr. Chairman, your leadership in getting us here to revisit this issue.
Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Navarro, and it was all of us. It's certainly one in which, look, this hit us all hard, and was incredibly troubling. As the district council member who represents that area, I mean, I've seen and been to Southlake multiple times, and more times than I can count on my fingers and toes, and it really is one where I know what kind of an impact this has on the community. The great work that's being done with HOC and Cider Mill Apartments that's right there in terms of turning that neighborhood around and making sure that people feel safe. And so they're revamping that apartment, that very large apartment complex right there in Montgomery Village as we speak, and doing more and more. And they need to have a school that's reflective of that same sort of care and attention and mindfulness of safety and all of those things. So, this is incredibly important. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and great to see you and my colleague, Councilmember Navarro, and thank you all for joining from the school system and our team here and my executive side. I remember how hard this discussion was when we had it during the CIP, and I think if they did one of those charts of how many times a word is said and it gets bigger, one of those circles, South Lake would certainly be among those larger names, because all of us really, there's so many tough decisions, and there's not enough money to go around, particularly in this environment. But South Lake certainly was one of those that stuck out as something that we all wanted to commit to revisiting as soon as possible. So I'm glad that we are starting this process of revisiting, and we're going to get into some of the details. I know we're going to hear from the county executive side about what proposals and plans they might have, but thank you to the Board of Education for bringing this forward, and to the superintendent and to my colleagues for all their efforts. I've been to South Lake a number of times, not as many times as Mr. Rice for sure, but and to Councilmember Navarro's point, it's I think it's easy to forget sometimes that how socioeconomically and racially and ethnically segregated we are in Montgomery County, and the consequences of that, and what that means in the life of families and their ability to have access to everything we would want any county resident, any resident of this country to have access to: a great school, a wonderful neighborhood, affordable housing, and the like. And when you look at something like South Lake, and you heard some of the stats, but this is a school that's almost 130% over capacity. All of these trailers, and in the HVAC system, which we're going to talk about, there's just need after need after need. And so I really hope we can find a way to move this forward, but also have a larger conversation, which we're having in other contexts with the SSP and other legislation and things that are moving forward, about how we're going to properly fund and do our share. Because to Councilmember Rice's point, the governor and the state has a role to play that they are right now are abdicating in the case of the Build to Learn Act. But we need to do our part and continue. That doesn't remove our responsibility or our desire to get as many of these projects moving forward as possible. So I appreciate the discussion and look forward to digging into the details.
Thank you very much to both of my colleagues, Councilmember Navarro and Councilmember Jawando. Let me just again extend accolades, as both of you have, to Montgomery County Public Schools Superintendent Jack Smith, as well as our Board of Education and all of their staff who continued to say that South Lake needed to be a priority. And I want to make sure that that's on record, because that was the board's original intent, and certainly one in which they've adhered to in terms of asking for us to find a way to make sure that we move this forward via supplemental request. Certainly one in which their stalwart commitment to the South Lake community should not go unnoticed. And then I also want to acknowledge our county executive. I've had a number of calls with County Executive Elrich, who has expressed support. He is working with his team in our Office of Management and Budget to try and figure out a way. And so that's why we're all here today, to have this conversation about how to move this forward, but certainly wanted to give credit to the county executive as well, who also has not backed down and shied away from understanding that this is important. In fact, as late as just 2 days ago, I was having a conversation with the county executive about this in particular, and making sure that we figure out a way to move South Lake forward. So with that, let me turn to our incredible staff, both Mr. Howard and Mr. Levchenko, who have helped us to navigate the CIP process before, who will certainly help us when it comes to figuring out the ways in which we might be able to move this forward. I want to thank Ms. Karen Mijas, Mr. Adams, Ms. Beck, and Ms. Jawa. Is that right? Okay, excellent. I want to make sure I got it right. Excellent. So for being with us today to help us to navigate this discussion. And so, Mr. Howard, Mr. Levchenko, I'll turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I'm going to do is just give a really brief intro and overview, then turn it over to Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez to walk through some of the more details of the request, and Mr. Levchenko to talk about some of the overall CIP issues, and then we can have a broader discussion with MCPS and OMB staff as well. So the board did submit request two supplemental appropriations and amendments to the CIP. On August 25th, the first one is for South Lakes, which would accelerate funding into FY21, and then the second one is $6.8 million for additional HVAC funding to address air quality issues related to COVID-19. Typically, we would get we'd wait to have the first work session until we got the executive's recommendation on these. But given the issues and the importance of them, and as Councilmember Navarro said, the delicate balance in trying to figure out solutions, that's a great way to put it. The purpose of this meeting is just to have an introductory discussion of the board's request and some of the issues that the council will need to consider as it works forward in this process. And at the end, we have some recommended next steps where council staff suggests that you ask us to work closely with MCPS and OMB staff to bring back some potential alternatives or options for you all to consider for both of these different projects. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez to talk a little bit in more detail about the board's requests.
Thank you. So starting with South Lake Elementary School, the board has a CIP amendment and request for $5.853 million in GO bonds for fiscal year 21. And they do that by amending the FY21 to 26 approved expenditure schedule by accelerating and advancing funds from the later CIP years to the earlier years. On the table on page 2, you can see a comparison of the board's original and initial request, the council's approved FY21 to 26 CIP expenditure schedule, and now what it would look like with the board's requested August 2020 amendment. And as I would like to note that the 6-year total for the original request, the approved, and now the amendment remains at $34.1 million. So the 6-year total does not change with the amendment. And it was fully funded by the council based on the board's request. MCPS has requested this appropriation and amendment to accelerate completion of the school by 1 year from September 2024 to September 2023. And that was the board's original completion date in their request, but due to fiscal constraints, the council approved a 1-year delay for this project. And some of the factors for their urgency to increase the acceleration include the school's building's aging infrastructure, which, as identified in the 2018 Key Facility Indicators Assessment, it is near the end of its anticipated life, poor infrastructure and indoor environment, high overutilization, other site and programmatic challenges. As mentioned by the council members prior to discussing this item right now, the school has a capacity of 694 students, but in the 2019 to 2020 school year, 893 students were enrolled. And this is a utilization rate of 128.7%. As a result, there are currently 13 relocatable classrooms on site, with 9 placed on the staff parking lot. And on the same day the board approved this amendment request, they also approved the construction of a temporary parking area elsewhere in the property to address the loss of parking spots. The second amendment request is for the HVAC mechanical systems replacement project. And the board is requesting a $6.8 million appropriation increase in fiscal year 21 in current revenue. The table on page 3 again shows the board's request, the council approved, and the amendment. And I would like to note that the $6.8 million increase in fiscal year 21 does impact the 6-year total, unlike in South Lake Elementary School where the 6-year total remained the same. MCPS has requested these additional funds for issues related to air filtration and air exchange rates as a result of the COVID-19 health pandemic. The board's memo on circle page 47 has additional specifics for how they will utilize the $6.8 million, but they've also included below the table on page 3, including additional higher rated air filters, 2,800 portable air cleaners, the cost for increased performance and preventative maintenance and equipment cleaning or replacement of filters, and also the anticipated increased electricity costs due to longer equipment run times and increased ventilation rates with the products that they would purchase with these funds. So that is a brief summary of the board's requests for both projects. I would like to also note that MCPS is also preparing additional responses to questions from council staff on their requests, and that will allow us to have additional information as well.
Should we turn to Mr. Levchenko? You're on mute.
Can you hear me now? All right. Yeah, the packet includes some additional information on the background of the major capital projects. Councilmember Rice will certainly recall, as Ms. Navarro will, this is an evolution of the program that really from the revitalization expansion program for many years into a new, more nimble program that the schools have called this major capital project approach. And I think part of the answer here is this is a new program, and the costs for the first set of projects that were identified were only first requested this fiscal year, or for this CIP round. So that's one of the affordability issues that the council had to deal with, is that before this we had a placeholder, which was exactly that, a placeholder. It did not account for the specific costs for all of the projects that the schools requested. So this was the first year that we had to accommodate the best estimates they had for the 9 projects that they put into their CIP request. So there is some background in the packet about that. I don't want to belabor that, but just note that that was one of the significant issues. And with regard to the FY21 through 26 CIP, we were talking about $375 million in costs spread across the major capital projects for the elementary and for the secondary schools. So that the placeholder was only about $150 or $120 million. And a lot of that money was front-loaded. So this probably brings up memories of the reconciliation process we had a few months ago, where we had significant issues in those first few years of the CIP. So that sort of set the stage for the issue of what could we fit. And in the reconciliation process, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit to page 4 and 5 of the packet. The council was very clear that it wanted to protect the Woodward and Northwood High School projects, which had been fully approved and expenditures included in the approved CIP. And those 2 projects also are heavily front-loaded in the CIP. So you combine the new money requested in the major capital projects, as well as the council's interest in keeping the Woodward and Northwood projects on schedule, and we had a very, very significant affordability issue in those first few years of the CIP. And that's what drove a lot of the reconciliation decisions, not just in the MCPS CIP, but across the rest of the CIP as well. DOT, libraries, police, all the other areas we had to look at and try to accommodate the early years of spending. So that's what sort of led us to what ultimately ended up in the approved CIP and what did not end up in the approved CIP. And as you can expect, there are a number of worthy projects that were not approved on the schedules that the executive and or the school system had requested in their respective CIP areas. In addition to that, moving forward now a few months, we have some additional affordability issues we're trying to deal with. First, as Committee Chair Rice mentioned, we have the uncertainty with regard to state aid. We did assume state aid, especially in the later years of the CIP for the Build to Learn Act. So that's something we're going to have to look at closely, and it could require some significant adjustments to the CIP next spring if that money is still uncertain, or we can't, at least we would have to revise our assumptions about that. So that's going to be a significant issue. We also have the fact that given the current fiscal situation on the operating side, the executive had recommended both an operating budget savings plan, which the council approved in July, but he also had recommended a FY21 CIP savings plan and had sent over recommended reductions in FY21 for county government, which the council ultimately did approve in July, but also had made recommendations for some targets for the outside agencies. The council later did approve some reductions in parks, but Montgomery College and MCPS did not offer any reductions, and the council has not taken up any potential reductions at this point. So that still remains an open question as to what level of support do we want to provide the operating budget through some kind of CIP reductions, either in pay-go or current revenue. So that's another issue here. Now, on top of that, you have the South Lake request, which the school system has put forward, which would require some additional money moved into FY21. So once again, we've got a lot of different areas of competition for those FY21 dollars, and that's what really drove a lot of the questions that we're asking MCPS and OMB in terms of what opportunities are there given where we are now with regard to projects that are moving through the system. What opportunities are there for potential savings, perhaps production delays, or lower priority projects that the executive may suggest to alternatively provide some resources either for South Lake or for general savings. But that's sort of where we are today. And it leads us to the proposed next steps that Mr. Howard mentioned. And I'll stop there and see if there's any questions the council members have about how we got where we are and any of these affordability questions.
Turn to my colleagues. Any questions at this point? No, I think you've done a thorough job, Mr. Jacob.
So for the next steps, as Mr. Levchenko mentioned, we have sent MCPS a list of questions about both of the supplementals that they're working on getting responses to, related to the different timelines and deadlines for each of the projects, whether there are any opportunities for potential CIP or operating budget offsets that would provide some additional fiscal capacity for these amendments. Some more detailed cost information on the specific components, especially related to the HVAC funding request, and as well as just questions about any availability of CARES Act funding that might be able to be used for some of these requests. So staff's thought was that given the need for additional information and with the affordability issues, that we could work with MCPS and the executive staff to work through some of this additional information, and as I mentioned before, bring back some alternatives for the committee to consider, because of course, all alternatives would have some fiscal or policy impacts or trade-offs that the committee would need to think about and discuss. So we would want to be able to flesh all that out to make sure everyone had all the information that was needed to kind of figure out, we could do this, but here's the potential corresponding impact if we did it this way or if we did it in a different way. And so with that, Mr. Chair, we'll turn it back to the committee for any questions for council staff or for any questions or discussion with MCPS staff on the specific projects or OMB staff to comment on any of these issues or the work that they're doing.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Howard, Mr. Levchenko, and Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez. Let me turn to Ms. Karamias or Mr. Adams. If you wanted to provide any context from MCPS, I then would like to hear from Ms. Hvac or Ms. Joa about ideas and thoughts from the county executive side.
Sure, and thank you, Chair Rice. I do want to start by saying these two projects are very different. Obviously, one is HVAC from a COVID-19 response perspective, and the other is, quite frankly, one of the most critical facilities that we have that we're trying to address right now. I think when you think about our facilities, and I heard each council member talk about the importance of a good facility, a facility that reflects, how we value that community. This is a school where we as a school system want to invest, we need to invest, and we're ready to work with our partners at both the county executive's office as well as each of the other agencies to see if there's ways in order to accelerate this project. I would say, some of the constraints, when we think about reopening our schools, sort of post-COVID-19, obviously the HVAC element is a critical part of that, and that is one where we are not willing to not invest in indoor air quality. But the other piece to this is Southlake is truly one of the only schools right now where we would have a challenge opening that school. We have 14 portables. Those portables now take up, the parking lot. We have a fraction of the parking for staff, and we're just out of real estate. We're out of options, and it just has elevated the need to address this particular school. So we're very appreciative of the conversation, and we're hopeful that as we continue the conversations, that as a county as a whole, we can figure out a way to really put this project back on track. From an HVAC perspective, I would say this is another critical area of work for us. We feel confident that our schools are safe, but there are elements that we know we need to address, and indoor air quality is one of those. Between ventilation and air filtration, this is an area that we absolutely have to address in order to safely go back. We are currently addressing this. We are using funds innovatively. Through that conversation with Mr. Colsing earlier, we have revamped our operating approach, and we are prioritizing funds where we need to. But this is an area where we absolutely will need assistance as we move forward, because again, it is critical to open. And the last thing we want to do from a facility standpoint is be in the way of students returning back to school. So for us, this is that measure that will really make sure that we are safe and we're prepared for when ultimately kids are able to come back to schools. So again, just thank you all for your support, and we look forward to the continued dialogue and creative thinking and approach to these two specific items.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mr. Adams. Before I turn to Ms. Beck and OMB, let me just ask a question about HVAC, because I was fortunate enough to be on a call with the CDC earlier and had a great conversation with them about some of the new guidelines that they're going to be working on. Of course, we already have ASHRI that came out with some suggestions about ways in which schools could open safely and recommendations that they had in terms of HVAC. But there's still some discussion, especially around the whole concept of what proper physical distancing needs to happen, as well as what types of time frames we need for air handling, exchange. All of those things are still yet to be determined, according to CDC to some extent. And so I'm curious as to whether or not we may be a bit premature in terms of what it is that we're looking to do. There's no question that we need to do something in terms of HVAC, but my concern is spending money without having all of those guidelines, the most recent, most up-to-date ones that ensure that the safety of our children is up to date with the latest CDC standards. So if you could comment a little bit on that.
Sure, and that is a great question. That's one of the areas that throughout the pandemic, it really doesn't matter where it is. It's been an evolution of what are the guidelines, what are the standards. When we think about indoor air quality, this is an area that, regardless of minimal standards, we know that we want to make sure that the indoor environment is exceeds those minimum standards. So what we're here to talk about is really some basics. It's operating equipment longer. It's providing more ventilation outdoor air into all of our teaching spaces, and it's filtering the air that's in those spaces a little differently, capturing as much particles and aerosols that we can possibly do. So for us, it's not necessarily sitting back waiting on the final guidelines. What we found is what we're proposing today, particularly our filters. The entire country is seeking these filters. So there's a backlog, there's shortages, there's time delays, and again for us, to have good indoor air quality is really it's common sense these days, and we will absolutely stay on top of the CDC recommendations. But I feel as if we are exceeding indoor air quality and conditions in our schools. That's a really good place to be, and it's a place where I think our parents and our families and our teachers, will hopefully have that one extra little bit of relief thinking about going back to school. One less anxiety element to think about, that we are really emphasizing indoor air quality.
Thank you for that. Let me turn to Ms. Beck to give an OMB perspective, and I'll turn back to my colleagues to see if they have any other thoughts or questions.
Okay, well, thank you. I do know that certainly these are important items, and I think that a lot of the comments that have already been made, I would echo. We do understand that there is a fiscal situation that we're still in the midst of dealing with. Earlier in the summer, the council passed a savings plan, which reduced much but not all of the FY21 PAYGO. Originally, my target was to reduce all of the $32 million in PAYGO, and we're still short about $8.6 million. So if we still need to do that, which we are in the process of reviewing the overall fiscal situation so that we'll understand how this sort of sets up in the grander scheme of things. If we are not able to find those savings, then it uses up almost all of the FY21 set aside. So what that would really mean then is that we're either trying to find other savings, other creative ways to pay for these things, or other projects that could be delayed, ideally with natural production delays, so that these be delays that were going to occur anyway. We've been working quite closely with council staff, excuse me, and MCPS, and have a meeting set up later this week to talk those issues through. I know Veronica has been trying to identify projects that perhaps have savings as she looks at the actual expenditures we've been getting from MCPS. So I think this is a real partnership of trying to find ways to address these issues. And I'm hopeful. I just can't make any promises at this point. And I think for FY22, honestly, I'm not sure if I'm going to be asked to reduce PAYGO again in FY22. So, there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment. Obviously, MCPS has a high priority for everybody. I was pleased to hear Councilmember Rice mention the Build to Learn Act. That will be critical. And the SSP, which was also mentioned, is also important because that determines how much money we have to fund projects like this, as well as to meet the heavy match requirements for the Build to Learn Act. So it's going to be important for us to leverage all of that kind of money. So I think that, the HVAC project's a little bit interesting. Really, those costs are pretty much operating types of things. So there may be some other ways to look at how we approach those costs, but I think that everybody is committed to trying to look at this creatively and see what we can do. As Seth said, nobody here wants to be involved in keeping kids out of school. And we want to have those schools be appropriate types of schools for them to be in. So I look forward to working with folks at schools and on council staff.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Beck. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to turn to Councilmember Jawando and Councilmember Navarro. Let me just say that for me, I remain committed to ensuring that we are able to accelerate Southlake Elementary School.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly is one, and I've heard that from all of you, so I'm not saying that that's anything different. But, in terms of my conversation with the county executive, and I don't want to speak for him, but I know our conversations have been very positive, and he too feels as though this is an important project and really wants to try and figure out how to make it happen. And so I do agree with all of staff that have said, let us figure out a way, working together, to make it happen, to figure out what those numbers are. And so I just wanted to be very clear that I certainly am supportive of that. And I think that we'll just need guidance from this committee to make sure that we can bless folks to say, yes, let's work on this, let's move forward, let's make this happen. But in addition, I did also just want to highlight something that is incredibly important as well. And that was something that Councilmember Navarro said. As we look at all that we do with the racial equity and social justice lens, this is one that certainly rises to the top. It's not just about just doing it because it is a school that has failing infrastructure, but it is also a school that has failing infrastructure that has a majority of Black and brown children that are, and a large portion of those are of lower socioeconomic status as well. And so it strikes all the chords of everything that we committed to as a county, not just as county council or county executive, but as a county, in saying was going to be a priority for us. And so that's where the impetus is for us to make sure that we get this done and figure out a way to make it happen. So with that, let me turn to Councilmember Jawando and Councilmember Navarro for any comments or questions they may have.
No, thank you, Mr. Rice. I couldn't agree with you more. I think we have to find a way to move this forward. I'm glad conversations with the county executive, I spoke to him last week as well. And it's good to hear Ms. Beck express what I'll characterize as cautious optimism and agreement, as much as a budget person can do that in light of the scenario we're in. But we need to figure this out. And I know, as I said earlier, I think all our colleagues are going to feel the same way. And really, really appreciate everyone's effort to try and get this done. I would be interested in that operating point that you made, Ms. Beck, if on the HVAC, if there's ways that we can be innovative and figure out how to split this up. I know you'll work with Mr. Howard and Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez to try to see what we can do, and obviously Mr. Adams and Mr. Levchenko to figure out what's the best approach. But I also want to second that we have to do this. I mean, this is not something we would like to do, which is kind of how we said it when we didn't get to put it forward last time. We just have to, under these circumstances, with what we're facing, with COVID, with the capacity, we just have to get this done. So really appreciate all the efforts and look forward to working with you in a collaborative way to do so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Jawando. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you. Yeah, same. I mean, I think that this conversation, I interpret this committee session to just kind of give the signal that, yes, we want you to please go and explore some different ways to see, to see this through. And that obviously this committee is absolutely giving the green light for you to do that. We've had difficulties in the past as well. I know this is unique, but I do think that for all the reasons we have all stated, that this is something that we need to explore and we need to find ways to move forward. So I'm in agreement, and I can't wait to come back and explore and consider the different proposals that will come through given this collaborative effort. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So let me just say this. With hearing all of my colleagues, I do also want to make sure that we move in a date certain sort of methodology as well. And so certainly if we can have these meetings and discussions within the coming weeks, certainly I'd like to see something. Now we are at the end of September, so certainly by mid-October, Mr. Howard, if there's another ENC meeting that we have scheduled, if not, if we can schedule one to kind of come back with whatever proposals we have at this point. I know that we have a meeting on October 5th, and I fear that may be too close in, and that creates too much of a time crunch, but certainly within a week after that, so somewhere around mid-October, would be fantastic to be able to really start to move the ball forward. I do want to be sensitive to the fact that, again, I'm no construction expert. I just know that that there may be some cost savings to be had with starting now with, not a whole bunch of projects moving forward. Maybe there's some construction costs we may be able to save on that'll help save a little bit of money here and there. I mean, there are all kinds of things that are out there. And I know that the sooner we come to a decision, the better it is for us in terms of being able to negotiate. So from that perspective, whatever we can do to try and accelerate this as quickly as possible would be appreciated.
Mr. Rice, we have a ENC scheduled for October 19th, so that might work as a mid-October date to shoot for.
So let's put that on the calendar and put that as a set date so everyone's on notice. We're going to try and get some numbers by October 19th so that we can certainly bring that before the committee in terms of potential recommendations. And then from there, obviously, going then to full council to try and have folks make a decision on. But I think that provides a reasonable time frame to be able to try and come up with some options. All right. Well, again, I really want to thank everybody involved because we're all saying the same thing and singing from the same songbook, so that's great. We know how important this is and that this needs to get done as we had promised the community and stakeholders, and it appears as though we're on that track. And so I really want to thank everybody for their commitment, for their leadership, for their dedication. Thank my colleagues again for all of their continued stalwart support. I do want to thank the council president, who I know represents the district just to the north and south of South Lake Elementary School in the city of Gaithersburg and surrounding jurisdictions. And he's been a stalwart advocate, as has the council vice president, who doesn't represent that area, and all of the other council members as well. They know, as Councilmember Giwando said, just how important this is and that we need to move this forward. And so I'm really looking forward to the support of all of my colleagues once we come up with some recommendations in terms of how to move forward. So have I missed anything, Mr. Howard, Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, Mr. Levchenko?
No, you've covered everything in the packet. I just want to note Councilmember Reamer just joined us right at the end, so I didn't know if he wanted to.
I had a conflict, so I got here as fast as I could.
No, that's fine. Well, I was speaking for you, but you can certainly speak for yourself, Mr. Reamer. Welcome.
Thank you. I don't need to speak. Thank you. I look forward to working with you, Mr. Chairman, and everyone who's on this call, just to make sure that we are doing everything we can to support reopening. So I believe that's the topic with the HVAC piece. So I just wanted to be here to learn. So thank you for taking this up. That's all.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Reamer. Thank you for being here. I know that you guys have had a long day today, starting since this morning. So thank you very much for being here in support. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you again. Stay safe. Make sure you wear your masks and proper physical distancing. You guys take care.
Thanks.